everyone, my name is Alex, and you're listening to the Sagar Stance podcast, where I give my Sagar stance on anything and everything set up paddleboarding as well as personal and lifestyle. I have to apologize right now for the lack of paddling related things on this podcast. I promise I'll get a few episodes paddling related out in a little bit. So if you're listening to this right now when it's being released and you have a few ideas of what you would want to see on the podcast, please let me know. I'd love to hear your guys' input. I do have a few ideas, but what's been happening recently with my life and how media works and all those things is just I've been wanting to do like the underconsumption podcast episode, and then this one, which is it's 19 lessons I learned at 19, because it is my birthday. As of right now, I am as of filming, it is not my birthday. My birthday is tomorrow, August 12th. So I thought it would be fun to film an episode of just 19 lessons I learned at 19, just as a little celebration of mi cumpleaños. So yeah, this is 19 lessons I've learned at 19, and I'm just gonna go through it. I just wrote down a ton of things that I've learned throughout my life. First one being is that you're young, so you don't need to know everything. Now that's a really good thing to say to start this episode, because there's a lot of things in this episode that I wrote down that you're like, well, duh, obviously that's something that you want to do or something you want to practice. When it's yeah, but I'm also just learning this, because even though I'm 19, I'm still pretty young, and I am constantly learning things, and I'm double checking, and I'm just checking everything. I'm paying attention to everything that's happening, and I'm learning a lot, and I've been learning a lot, especially in the past year. But yeah, I don't know everything. I'm not going to claim to know everything. There's a lot of things here that you may have been oh yeah, obviously, and then there's other things that you may be oh, I never really thought of it. So yeah, that's number one. I am young. I don't need to know everything, and that's okay. I don't have to learn everything. I don't have to know everything. I shouldn't be expected to know everything. Being young is the most important time to be making mistakes and learning from your actions. So I can't really beat myself up about making mistakes or doing something wrong, because I am doing these things for the first time. There's a highly likelihood that I am going to mess up, and that's okay. It's part of the learning process. It is part of growing up. Number two is that I don't need to follow the crowd. I stopped following the crowd the minute that I, as an American citizen born in the United States, moved to Mexico at 6 years old. So I've grown up not following the crowd. But even then, there's that crowd that grew up in the United States, but there's also this crowd that I grew up with in Mexico. And a big part of U.S. culture, I talk about it a lot. I am influenced by both American and Mexican culture. U.S. culture, you go to high school, you immediately go to college, and you go to school, and it's just you get a 9 to 5 and blah. Obviously, it's not as set in stone now. People are finding ways to not do this and just not just give your entire life to a 9 to 5, you know? But still, there's so many of my friends that are going to college, and here I am thinking I was just taking a gap year, when I'm not taking just a gap year. I'm not going to school. This month, August, is usually the time that people start school. It's the first month of the school year. And I'm not going to school like I expected after my gap year. And while it's kind of scary and mentally iffy, just being well, all of my friends are doing this, and I'm constantly being asked when I'm going to school, what I'm going to do with my life, when I don't know. I'm still super young. I don't know what I'm doing, and it's okay for me to branch out and do something else. Currently I have a great job that is stable, and it's great. I don't have to go to school right now. In the future, if I want to, I can, but right now I have a job doing something that I absolutely love. There's no need for me to go to school right now when what I'm doing is efficient enough, it's fulfilling enough. Number 3 is succumbing to peer pressure gets you nowhere. Now, this was a really, really big thing when I was a younger teenager. A lot of my friends, and this is nothing against them, I want to make this clear. I do not care that they were doing these things, and I don't look down upon them in any way for them doing these things. But a lot of my friends got into drugs and alcohol really early, and obviously I was friends with them, so I was also surrounded by this. But I stood my ground, and I was no, I'm not going to do it, because I didn't want to do it. I really didn't. I just felt I just was not in the position to try these things, to to like learn or just like experiment with those types of things like in the moment. I really wanted to wait until I myself was comfortable exposing myself to these things. And there was definitely times where my friends were like, "Come on, Alex, just try it. Like let's do this, let's do that." And I would put my foot down and be like, "No, absolutely not." But once my friends kind of realized that they're like, yeah, no, we're not going to make her do it. They kind of just backed off, and they were okay with it, and they understood. And I'm currently 18, so I'm at the legal age in Mexico to be able to drink, so I do feel comfortable talking about this on the internet. But with alcohol specifically, I was able to kind of pace myself and learn about it in my own time, and so I feel like I developed a really healthy relationship with alcohol. And also when it comes to like going out or trying new things or just like getting out of my comfort zone, I never succumbed to peer pressure, and I never made a stupid mistake, or I never did anything that like caused any like long-term issues. I was able to develop a really healthy relationship with these things. That was a big thing, like learning to not succumb to peer pressure. It really helped me learn a lot about myself and how I like to consume these types of things on a personal level, and not just like feel like I'm being forced to do it, and like in turn developing a pretty negative relationship with it, because I feel like if I was succumb to peer pressure and I did it and like something went awry or something like that, I would feel very guilty. So number 4 is exposure therapy is amazing, and I'm talking about this specifically in the world of social anxiety and perfectionism. I used to be such a socially anxious person. I used to be really bad at it. I used to be like, ugh, it was bad. In situations I would kind of just go mute and kind of put myself in a corner and just listen. Yeah. And I also, when it comes to perfectionism, I felt like I had to be perfect all the time, like perfect 24/7, all these things. And so with living like this for so long, I really did not want to continue living like this. It was something that I no longer wanted to be experiencing. So what I would do is that I would literally expose myself to situations where I would have to deal with these situations. Social anxiety, I would put myself out there. I would talk to new people, like compliment someone on the street, all these things. And then with perfectionism, I would purposely not go 100% on during or doing something on a task or a situation. This was big with grades. Like near the end of my senior year, I kind of just went kind of meh. I just did the bare minimum to get a decent grade. I didn't feel like I had to go above and beyond. I didn't force myself to go above and beyond, because I feel like that I would have gotten the same score whether or not I put in like 100% of effort rather than like 80% of effort, or like vice versa. I don't know, you get my point. But yeah, exposure therapy for these like specific instances was so good for me, and now I feel like I am a much more like outgoing and extroverted person. Obviously I need my alone time is very important to me, but I can handle myself in social situations, and I know to not pressure myself into being the most perfect person in the room. Number 5 is I learned to not rely on material objects. This is a big thing that I've talked about. I constantly am talking about this, but learning to detach yourself from material objects and not relying your happiness and your fulfillment on material objects. Instead, looking for your fulfillment in external things that are not tangible, like experiences or your personal actions. It's so much more rewarding and more fulfilling, and I think it's really important to not fill your life with objects that are only like kind of important to you. I really like to surround myself with things that are like really important to me, and it just makes me so much happier in my space and my situation and just all of that. And it also helps me save a lot of money. Number 6 is looking at the world and instances and situations glass half full rather than glass half empty. Whenever a situation happens, I'm the type of person that would really look at the positive. I really only try to focus on the positive. I'm a glass half full type of person. I definitely think that if you just project negativity and you're always thinking about the negative and always thinking about what's going wrong rather than like what's going right, or how a situation has changed and it has opened up a new door, like stuff like that. I definitely like viewing the world and situations and instances in a lot more positive mindset, because if I just focus on the negative, then I'm just going to be negative Nelly, just walking around like being annoyed at the world. I remember that when I was on my my Europe trip, there were a few people on my trip that would just like be like so annoyed of things that we were doing. Like they'd just be like tired of walking, or there was like mismanagement, so maybe like the bus arrived a little bit later than what we were expecting, all these things, and they'd just be so negative, and it was just a big downer. Like, we're literally in Europe, we're touring Europe, we are literally doing so much more than the average person could ever do in their entire lifetime, and you are complaining that, like, oh, we had to walk a little bit more. Like, are you serious? Like, are you really? That's what you're focusing your time and energy on. Next one, I'm gonna stop like numbering them, like giving them numbers. I'm just gonna keep on going. Like, next one, next one, next one. But next one is, I'm learning a lot more to live in the moment. There was a point where I was posting like every other day on Instagram. There was always something to post. I felt like I always needed to post something. I was always posting what I was doing on my stories or my Instagram or even TikTok, and I felt like that I just wasn't experiencing anything in the moment. There was one time back in 2019, I went on a whale watching excursion in Victoria Island, and I was filming a YouTube video for that little trip because I liked to film little vlogs of what I was doing. And I remember so many whales. We saw so many whales. It was so beautiful, but I was so hung up on filming the whales that I was watching what the whales were doing through my camera instead of actually watching it in person. And later I realized, like, I didn't actually watch the whales. I watched the whales through the perspective of my camera. So I essentially just didn't even like watch the whales. And that was really eye-opening because it made me realize, like, oh, I'm not really enjoying the moment. I'm not like spending time in the moment. And I definitely think that it's fun and awesome to take photos and videos, but in that situation, in that instance, I realized, like, oh, I didn't pay attention at all. I was just so worried about filming it and getting it on camera that I didn't actually experience the moment and enjoy it while it was happening. So I've definitely tried to be a lot more like present and in the moment. Like, there's a few things that I've done to like help that. I've given myself social media limits, so I'm no longer like on my phone 24/7. I moved a lot of my camera roll to an external hard drive, so I'm not like stuck up in the past and just kind of going through my camera roll and seeing stuff that I like took, like photos that I took like back in 2019. Like, I'm not paying attention to that stuff. I'm living in the moment. And a lot of times I don't really bring my phone places. I just bring a little digital camera that is super easy to use and super quick to use, so I don't spend time focusing on my phone and like taking photos with my phone. I just have a digital camera and I just go boop, one photo and done. I don't try to take 1,000 of them, because when we take thousands of photos of like one like situation, one instance, it really like dims down the importance of taking the photo. Like, if you take 1,000 photos and there's only like one that's perfect, you are creating a curated vision of that situation for yourself. And I definitely realized that, and I'm like, wait, I don't really want to experience a perfectly curated way of life or me experiencing something. I want to have like a photo, and I want the experience to be raw. Maybe the photo is a little imperfect, maybe it's a little bit out of focus, but that was what was happening in the moment, and I just took one photo, and then the rest of the time I spent experiencing that moment and that experience. Guys, I'm getting out of breath talking about these things, but I'm just keep on going. And if you hear my computer running in the background, it's my sincerest apologies. I cannot control it. I've already taken a break because the fan was going so strong, but I have to continue. I can't be like pausing every 10 minutes. Maybe if we can move the camera a little bit away from the computer. Next one is that jealousy is a killer of joy. Now, that's not exactly how the saying goes. I can't remember how the saying goes, but I definitely want to like focus this in the sense of jealousy specifically. I used to be so jealous of people and situations and instances. Either someone had more money than me, or someone had a better style than me, or someone was like funnier than me, and it would just debilitate me and make me feel so bad about myself. And a big part of it was lack of confidence, lack in like self-confidence and really believing in myself. And I wish that I spent so much less time focusing on the jealousy that I carry towards other people, or I wish I focused like less on putting in effort to becoming someone else that I looked up to rather than just being myself. I really wish that I, instead of focusing on everyone else. I just focused on myself and learned to become more self-confident and develop my own style, develop my own like personality and humor. And yeah, that's time that I won't get back, but now that I am a lot better and like a lot like a lot better when it comes to that situation, I think that I will make up for lost time. Next one is that there's absolutely no need for us to grow up early. I remember I was always told like, oh my god, you're so mature for your age, like you're such a good speaker, you're so like smart and intelligent, you're like, yeah, like so you're so mature. And I felt like I had to maintain that, and I felt like, oh, obviously when you're like a little kid or when you're a teenager, all you want to do is to be an adult. All you want to do is to grow up and be responsible for yourself and do your own things and make your own money. And then like as the years go by and you're getting closer and closer to becoming independent, making your own money, living in your own place, reality sets in and you're like, wait, I wish that I could slow this down. Like this needs to slow down. I want to still be a kid. Like I don't want to grow up yet. I wish that I had taken more time to just appreciate being young and doing things while I was young instead of focusing a lot on being an adult and acting like an adult and doing things like an adult, being super hyper independent. I regret not letting myself be dependent. And that also goes into another one of my points, is that you're never going to be too old to do the things that you love. I feel like honestly, there's no age to interests or hobbies or things that you like doing. Like, for example, I'm turning 19. The one thing I wanted for my birthday was a Lego set. Like, I got the Orchid Lego set, and that was what I wanted for my birthday. And like, that's okay. Like, I hope to collect more sets in the future. I currently have 3, and they're all like plants. Like, I have little sunflowers right here. I have a succulent set. But that's just one example of me saying, like, you don't have to let go of hobbies or interests just because you're getting older. You don't have to let go of things that you want to do because you're getting older. There's definitely a big thing of curing your inner child, taking care of your inner child, allowing yourself to be a kid for a little bit, because we all need that every once in a while. We all need just that release of responsibility for just like a little bit. Next one is, I don't know if this relates to everyone, is that I was able to practice body neutrality. Now, that is a term that has been thrown around, and when I personally talk about body neutrality, it's more the sense of maybe I am not exactly like super happy with where my body's at right now, but I still love myself unconditionally. There are so many people that think that like, oh, I'll love myself when I get skinny, or I'll love myself when I look like this. And they reach that goal, and they reached their weight goal, or they reached this goal that they had worked so hard for, but they didn't. They're not as happy as they thought they were, or as they thought they would be. And that's essentially because you never actually learned to love yourself. You just expected to love yourself once you reached a certain weight. And a really big thing for me, like, I always grew up a little bit bigger than everyone else. And so I was definitely, from a young age, I was always taller and bigger than all of my friends. So seeing that growing up, and then also with like social media and just these unreachable female body expectations, obviously I would reach a moment where I'm like, I don't look like why don't I look like that? I need to look like that. And I feel like that's just such a toxic way of thinking about your body. You are literally convincing yourself that you have to reach societal expectations when your body is not like any other body in the world. You are like unique, you are original. You don't have to reach societal expectations. So definitely learning to love myself no matter like what weight I'm at, how I look. Like, I am going to love myself unconditionally. I am so worth as much as I am, no matter what size I am, has definitely allowed my mind to relax and not to obsess over what I'm eating and how much I'm working out and like all these things. Next one is, I really learned to enter situations in a very neutral manner. We all know that there are so many different types of people, and people that just have so many different types of interests. I definitely have learned to not go into situations at 110%, especially when it comes to like my interests, or what I like to say, or like jokes or stuff like that. There's definitely a lot of people that relate to certain things that I talk to, and there's people that don't relate to certain things that I talk to. So learning how these people like relate and don't relate to situations is definitely good to understand, because I also like, obviously people have completely different interests, and I don't want to make someone uncomfortable when talking about a situation when I didn't even know that that situation made them uncomfortable. So learning those things and adapting myself to different people so that, I don't know, I can vibe with as many people as I can. I think that's great, because there's different friends for different things, So you can't really fit all the people that you know into one specific like cookie cutter thing. Obviously there's people that have like talk about certain things and all that stuff. So definitely going into a situation like meeting people, or like even an event, competition, or like a job meeting or anything, in a completely like very neutral manner is very good. And it doesn't like provide yourself with expectations. It doesn't push yourself to expect one thing and then you get the other. I think just going into instances with a very neutral perspective is really good, and it helps your brain. The next thing is that you're not always responsible for what happens to you, but you are responsible for how you react. Now, this is a big talking point in the book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F. I'm not going to say the words because this is a PG podcast, but there are things that we can't control, and how, as much as they are unfortunate, we also are very responsible for how we react to those situations. And that also ties in with my glass half full. There's times where I'm like, wow, that really sucks. I am frustrated that happened, and I wish it didn't happen, but I also can't dwell on it that much. It happened and I can't do anything about it, and so it doesn't make sense to get mad at it or to dwell on it, when I just have to keep on moving forward and just deal with the consequences of whatever happened, or just finding another way to deal with the situation. You are very much responsible for how you handle situations, whether or not they are good or bad. Next one is social media is not the end all be all. I mentioned this earlier, like I used to post everything on social media, and I'd feel like, oh, I need to like prove to people that I am doing these great things and I'm having a fun time and all these things, when in reality it does not matter at all. Social media is curated to have people like look the best and have it look like that people are having the time of their lives, when in reality people are just curating that to make it seem like they're having the best time of their lives. And once I learned that social media was essentially fake, there was no need for me to really look at people's like what they posted and feel jealous, and then for me to even post stuff to like show people. I remember when I went to Italy in was like April, May, I think I posted like twice, and that's it. I have like so many more photos of that trip, but I don't feel the need to post it on social media, because why would I need to post it on social media when I took those photos for myself? Another thing is that if it won't cause serious change, it is not worth thinking about. There are times like awkward like conversations, awkward instances that I've been in where it was just like an embarrassing moment, or maybe I like said something off in a situation and kind of made the other person do a double take, or I mispronounced something and someone made fun of me, or just like there's like all these things, like they're very like minute things, but it just like fills up your brain, and you just get reminded of that embarrassing moment, or you get reminded of how the other person reacted in that situation, when if that situation had no real consequence, there's really no reason for you to constantly be thinking about it. Sure, it was an embarrassing moment, but that embarrassing moment has already passed, and it's in the past now. You don't have to think about it anymore. Maybe you've learned how to avoid that situation in the future, but you're done. That situation's done. You don't have to talk about it. You don't have to dwell on it anymore. It doesn't have to fill up your brain and just like make you so embarrassed. The time has passed. Stop talking, stop thinking about it. And it's so relieving to figure out how to stop thinking about it and like no longer think about it. It's just so relieving to just be like, yeah, that happened, that's embarrassing, but I'm gonna move on now. Next one is that it's okay to get out of your comfort zone. Now, this is obviously like very like case in point, well, yeah, obviously. And it also tied in a lot to the big thing that I talked about, like succumbing to peer pressure. Once I felt comfortable trying these things, I was able to step out and try these things. A big thing in my Europe trip, it was also just there were so many opportunities that were arisen to me, like whether or not I wanted to do this, whether I wanted to do that. And I'm like, okay, when am I ever going to be in this situation again? When am I ever going to have this opportunity? So it was very much take it and experience it and just live in the moment and enjoy what is happening. And a lot of that thought process stayed with me after my trip. And now I like stepping a little like more out of my comfort zone. I very much like my comfort zone, but I've also learned that you're never going to improve as a person, you're never going to grow as a person if you don't leave that comfort zone. So yeah, getting out of your comfort zone is very important. Next one is being humble is the most attractive feature, and that goes for like me, myself, and also people that I surround myself with. Like, I need you to be humble. If you are not humble, I will humble you. Like, come on. It's so like exhausting being with people that just have these huge egos about situations and instances, and like no matter what, they just like constantly talk about like situations, or like, oh, how good they are like paddling, or how much money they have, or how smart they are, or all these things. And it's like, just stay humble. I'd much rather you again be very neutral about like your interests or how well you do in like sports and stuff like that. I'd much rather you be like very like neutral and have your actions speak for you rather than you speak for yourself. And then that also kind of translates to like how I speak and how I talk about certain things. I try to be like very humble. I try to enter in like very neutral way, and I'd much rather have my actions speak for myself. And if someone asks me about something, then I will answer, but I'm not going to be like, oh, I do this, I do that, like, oh, I can do this, I can do that. I'm not going to do that, because what does it serve me when these people aren't even asking about that? Like, they could care less for like all I know. So I'm not going to be talking about that and shoving the things that I can quote unquote do well in their face when I'd much rather have my actions speak for myself. Next one is that not everything has to be done at 100%. And I did mention this before. It's so mentally and physically draining to feel like you have to do everything at 100% of the time. And it's gotten to the point where I did that my entire like teenage life, like with school and everything, sports, like extracurriculars, all that thing. I always felt like I had to do everything at 100%. And now at 19, I'm tired. I'm exhausted. Like, I've essentially just drained myself out of like being productive and doing things at 100%, that now I don't want to do anything at 100%. I'm tired. I don't want to. I don't have the energy to do stuff like that anymore, because I felt like I had to do everything all the time. So definitely now I'm realizing that like you don't have to be 100% of the time. You can be 70% of the time. You can be 80% 50% of the time. I don't have to like always be on, if that makes sense. And lastly, this is the last one. I mean, I'm looking down because I wrote down on a piece of paper all the things all of my little 19 lessons. But lesson 19 is that don't take everything so seriously. Relax for a bit. I wish I could tell my younger self that like a few years ago. I would take everything so seriously. I never took a joke. I never said jokes. I never laughed at like funny situations. I was so serious. I wish I just relaxed a little bit and enjoyed myself, like enjoyed the chaos of a situation rather than like trying to fix it, or learning to just like be okay with a mistake that happened rather than getting mad at someone for making the mistake. I wish I just relaxed a little bit when I was younger. But now I'm glad that I learned that really early, so now I can take things like less seriously. Like, I know when to take things seriously and when I can just relax a little bit. But yeah, that's the last one. And that is all for this episode. It is a long episode, I fear. But I mean, it's fun. I love this is great. This was fun. I love talking about these things, and it's great. That is all for the episode. Thank you so much for listening, and hopefully, fingers crossed, I will catch you guys next week. Adios. Ciao.